Donald Trump's moving ahead with so many executive orders, it's making protesters' heads explode like spoiled melons. So what's freaking him out? Is it the moratorium, which is meant to figure out how to ferret out the fanatics from the friendly? Is it enhanced border security? Is it the removal of criminal aliens? Is it the ending of sanctuary cities? Is it hiring more ICE and border agents or giving more aid to crime victims? I ask you, how are those impositions on our citizens? They aren't. But gang crime in sanctuary cities, that's an imposition. Muslim terrorists infiltrating countries among migrants to butcher innocents and end civilization, I'd call that an imposition. But do those bother the protesters? They claim to support women and gays, but do they protest when women and gays are killed in Muslim countries? In New York last night, they protested over Muslim rights. But who victimizes Muslims most? Muslim countries. CARE, the Muslim group, claims Muslims are being targeted here. But doing so, don't they conflate the terrorist with the peaceful Muslim? And now they target a man, Donald Trump, who identifies the evil by name, rather than targeting the evil itself. The protest mottos are resist and desist. The target is Trump, not the target. Enforced clothing on women, the death penalty for adultery and homosexuality, beating women for driving, female circumcision, honor killings. I guess coming out against actual evil takes guts. I want to go to this it's a Hannity exclusive tonight with none other than Donald Trump. It's a clip of Donald Trump talking about radical Islam. Let's roll that.
We have evil that lurks around the corner without the uniforms. Ours is harder. Because the people that we're going against, they don't wear uniforms. They're sneaky, dirty rats. And they blow people up in a shopping center. And they blow people up in a church. These are bad people. We are fighting sneaky rats right now that are sick and demented. And we're going to win.
Okay, Dana. Contrast that bluntness of language. I mean, sneaky rats compared to the dirty rats, sneaky rats. Compare that to the previous person in that office. You got to admit.
It's so refreshing.
It really
It's very refreshing, and it's also like, yeah, I agree with that, and it can get you on the team.
Yes.
Right, the team fighting against, but he used another word that hadn't been used in the last several years, and that is evil. And when you see the world as between good and bad, good and evil, it makes it easier to then defend yourself and to make important decisions.
Yeah, that's true.
Barack would have said small animals with little legs.
Really?
No.
To not offend them.
Yeah. You know, I don't find that all that offensive. I mean, but although this order that he's given out is not going to do a single thing to help the terrorism, but it's all right. I was given by a friend today. A conservative magazine wrote that of something like 85 terrorist actions in the United States, vast number of them were from people within the United States. One was from one of the countries that he listed. And in the end, they've already got very strong enforcement before you can get in here. So it's nice to talk about. It sounds like James Cagney. Some of you won't remember him.
But then Eric, you could obviously say, well, then if it's not that big of a deal, why the uproar? If it's kind of just a singular, basic, you know, he's doing this little, it's a small deal. Why are the protesters going crazy?
Well, I don't know why they're protesting everything. Every single executive action he does, they're protesting. They're following. Well, the motorcade will go from this event to the next event, and they follow him. It's a big deal for
like
us on the right because ISIS has promised to infiltrate the refugee program. They said, and it takes time. They're going to continue to try and do it. So, in Trump, President Trump, what he wants to do is he wants the entire refugee program, at least for 120 days, put a moratorium on it to find out how our vetting procedures are. And then for 2017, he wants to cut back the program from 120,000 refugees total in half, and then he'll deal with people coming from Muslim countries in yet another way. And I found it very interesting today. Theresa May, the British Prime Minister, today used the same terminology that President Trump used. She wasn't afraid to call radical Islamists terrorists. She went there. President Trump does it, and I agree with Dana. It's refreshing that we can finally call them what they are.
50,000 total?
55,000.
55,000.
Refugees total.
Yeah, so isn't it refreshing? He actually speaks the way people can understand. He's not been trained to speak out of both sides of his mouth. He's speaking directly to the American people in terms they understand. There is no confusion or obfuscation when you talk about dirty rats and evil. People understand that. Like, we got it. We got the message, and he's saying he's going to do something about this. I like it. He's not afraid to use words. And, Bob, to answer your question, I mean, we had an administration for 8 years that was frightened of semantics. Frightened, cowering, with a little blanket in the corner because they didn't want to call it radical Islamic terrorist. That is part of the problem if you can't even identify it or name it because you're too worried that people might think something or you might offend jihadists, you might offend ISIS. We want to do far more than offend them. So
yeah,
get it started.
Well, wait a minute. You're talking public enemy #1 for CARE. You remember they were after me all the time?
Yes, I remember that fondly about you.
Well, I mean, before I want to add to that, you protested. Wouldn't you back those protesters if they understood the existential threat, like if they also protested?
Now, listen, this is going to remake the careers of a lot of really retired actors and actresses who have nothing else to do. I mean,
right.
it's a good industry to be in. I mean, I went up to the Apple store, which moved, and I ran across all these cops and protesters doing something. I couldn't figure out what it was. It was in front of Trump Tower, so that was obvious. But I don't think it's doing as much good, frankly.
Yeah, it's in the same spot, Bob.
Yeah.
And by the way, so you're on board with Trump's Trump on this initiative?
No, because I don't think it does anything.
Wait a minute, wait.
I just think, listen, you can't keep coming out with these things. He came out with
you just agreed with him, though.
No.
No, you just did. You said you're public enemy #1 of CARE.
Yeah, but that's the way I agree with his.
What is with CARE? I think, can I jump ahead to that SOT?
That's Bowling's friend, too.
CARE's press conference. They can't even spell the word CARE right.
Douglas Hooper.
Anyway, that's a joke. Let's roll that.
Make no mistake, whatever language is used in President Trump's executive orders on refugees, immigration, and visa programs, Muslims, we believe, are the sole targets of these orders. These orders are a disturbing confirmation of Islamophobic and un-American policy proposals made during the presidential election campaign.
All right, Eric, you know what bugs me about this? They call these everything. They call these proposals Islamophobic. So if you target Islamic radicalism, they say you're hurting all Muslims. So they are conflating terrorists with the average Muslim.
Yeah. And constitutionally, you really can't go after Muslims. You can go after countries of origin, just so happen to be predominantly Muslim countries. That's what you have to do. But again, CARE, we're waiting. You know, the moderate Muslims that are against all this need to be a lot more vocal, and just defending Islamophobia or calling out Islamophobia, it shouldn't be the only thing that CARE should be doing. They should be encouraging moderate Muslims to turn over information on plots, on terror, on cells.
It's amazing that CARE only has press conferences when they want to attack us on something like this, and when there's a terrorist attack, they don't say anything.
No, I know, but what are they? They're completely ineffective. They're not helping in any regard.
Well,
Middle East. Disaster.
I have another great sound on tape of Donald Trump. I think this was with David Muir. You're aware, you know who he is.
I do.
His really nice hair.
Very.
Yeah.
It was a hair contest last night.
Yeah, let's watch.
Are you at all concerned it's going to cause more anger among Muslims around the world?
There's plenty of anger right now. How can you have more? The world is a mess. The world is as angry as it gets. Well, you think this is going to cause a little more anger? The world is an angry place. All of this has happened. We went into Iraq. We shouldn't have gone into Iraq. We shouldn't have gotten out the way we got out. The world is a total mess. The world is a mess, David.
It's a mess. Danny, he sounds like Joe Pesci from Goodfellas.
Like,
every time I hear that,
the world is a mess, but your hair is amazing.
Yes. What do you think?
Did you want to go ahead? No. Okay. I think that the rhetoric on this gets heated because of something Eric was talking about, which is it's assumed that the United States government now is going to be targeting people based on their religion rather than on their region. And I agree, though, that there are problems and there are holes. With, for example, the visa waiver program is a really good program. It makes it very easy to travel from the UK to the United States, meaning that your visa requirements are waived because we know where you're coming from. But what we also know is that that's the pipeline for terrorism is coming through there. So, like,
because they don't leave, they jump their visas.
Right, and a lot of them had traveled to Syria. And I think that the importance also of the word moratorium is good because If something happens on United States soil, he's going to be responsible. He will be held responsible. And I think 120 days for them to get themselves comfortable with the program that is in place for vetting is reasonable, that we can be vigilant and compassionate at the same time.
That makes sense, Kimberly?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that he's really speaking on message and talking about what he believes the world is like today. And I think there's a lot of good facts to support his theory. And his theories are backed up when you see that Syria is essentially a failed state. And we've seen an administration that has bent over backwards as it relates to Iran, that has not put America first in terms of our foreign policy and our diplomacy. Otherwise, we would not be in this position. The failed red line in Syria, relations with Israel not good, relations with Russia not good, and so in this power vacuum you've seen terror move in. He's going to correct the course, and it sounds like right away.
Yeah.
Well, it's true.
From his mouth to policy.
Well, look what he's doing. Look at the executive orders.
I think they were complaining about the press, and Bannon came out today and said that the press were the enemy and to shut up. But you know where Trump got great press on the front page of every newspaper?
Where?
Russia. This is really, he did it. Every major newspaper had a positive story about Trump on the front page.
How'd you see all those?
Because they ran it in the Huffington Post.
Must be true.
No, they had real. Unlike the Trump White House, they actually had real pictures.
All right.
Oh,
we
boy.
done here?
Done.
We got more Trump to come, believe me.